Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to another episode of the Versus Stars podcast third season. How my loyal listeners, thank you for continued support. This is an amazing episode because Erik Larsen boards the mothership to discuss the Savage Dragon from Image Comics. Now, come aboard as we go traversing the stars. Hello, Mr. Larsen. Welcome to the Versus Stars podcast.
Okay, excellent. Happy to be here.
It's an honor talking with you, sir. So, I always start off with a question of inspiration to inspire your love for comics and who your earliest influences.
Earliest was well, my dad bought comics when he was a kid, so I grew up with a lot of his old comics. So the earliest ones I was reading were like Captain Marvel Adventures and things from the distant past. He bought comics up through the time that EC was publishing, and then he bought all the EC books. And when EC stopped, he stopped buying comics. So that's what we grew up with, was all his old Uncle Scrooge comics and just kind of a variety of things that he got. Some DC stuff. He liked Boy Commandos, so there was some of those that were around. Um, and then when I started getting comics, my gateway drug was Incredible Hulk 156.
Mm.
And so Herb Trimpe was the first artist there that I kind of knew by name. And then I branched out, and once I discovered Jack Kirby, it was all over.
So,
And
one
at that time, he was working on at DC doing Commandy, stuff like that.
So 156 of the Hulk. So you're only a few years away from the first Wolverine. Did you get that issue?
I did, yeah.
What was your reaction to Wolverine? Did you know that was gonna be a character that would become a legend in the industry?
No, we didn't know. It was just another dude. It's like Hulk's always finding dudes, so here's another one.
So you said your father bought EC comics. Now, my memory of EC is that they were the old horror stories too, right? Like Vault of Horror, stuff like
Yeah, yeah.
so
They had horror stories. They had a line of science fiction books too, and war comics. So they kind of had a bunch of things, and they really had the uh best artists and writers in the industry at that point. So it was Jack Davis and Wally Wood and just a bunch of really great guys.
when was it that you realized that you could be in the industry, that you could be in comics?
Well, I started drawing comics myself as a little kid. So I didn't know what size anybody drew anything on, because I just had no didn't know that art was drawn bigger or anything like that. So I was just drawing on 8.5 by 11 paper that I'd folded in half and stapled up the side. And I was just creating my own comics starting in like fourth grade. So it just, as time went on and you kind of get more information, and then eventually it's like, oh, they do it this big, and these are the proper tools. Once How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way came out, it was a real like eye opener. You just go, oh, this is the size and this is what people are doing. Awesome. I
It's
want
kind
to
of
do
funny.
that.
I own that same book, but I can't draw for crap. So I remember trying to draw when I was little with that book, and I would
Yeah,
like try to look at it and like copy what they're doing, and it's a lot different probably looking from someone who can't draw from someone who actually can.
yeah. It's a little bit different. But like the first comic I ever drew that was full size was I did a dragon story, pre-Savage Dragon, and it was 23 pages long, and uh, I just drew it the proper size and submitted it to, at that point, Charlton Comics was doing a book called Charlton Bullseye, where they would pay you nothing but give you comp copies of this book, and you could have the copyright and all that stuff. And I was like, oh, I want Dragon to be in print. This will be awesome. But by the time I got it to them, they had already that book was already canceled. And it's like, oh, I have nothing to do with this 23-page story. But then I met a couple other guys who fancied themselves artistic, and through a local comic book store, and we decided between the three of us, hey, let's do our own comic. My dad had a tabletop offset printing press because he was a teacher and he needed to print a bunch of material, and I was kind of his press man for whenever he needed anything printed. So I thought I can jury rig this thing to print comic books. And you couldn't really they weren't like super great for that. And also I had no idea how to do the coloring so that there weren't terrible moire effects and stuff like that. So the actual, if you ever see a copy of the real graphic fantasy, those comics kind of look terrible, but
Are they still in circulation out there somewhere?
well, I happen to have a copy right here.
Oh wow, that's awesome. Oh, that's
As it
cool.
so turns out. We actually Image Comics recently, well, not that recently, but not too long ago, we did a facsimile edition. This isn't that. This is the original.
Yeah.
But I mean, there are so many problems. Like the printing press could hold about this much stuff.
Yeah.
So what I had to do is I had to crank the paper all the way to one side and print the bottom part. And then the title was down on a separate layer on a separate thing. So this went through the press 5 times in order to look this terrible.
Well, I say I like
And
I like the lettering. Graphic fantasy is very good.
I mean, it's readable and stuff, but you can, I mean, I don't know if you can pick it up on that, but there's like a blue line that's going across the
Yeah,
back.
I can see it.
And that's because I was using these paper plates and the ink would get on the very edge. So when I had everything cranked down, a little bit of ink just went right across the middle of it. So I
Oh,
did
that's
everything I could.
awesome.
I did so much stuff to try and compensate for it, but
See, that
it
should be in a
ended up
museum
looking.
somewhere.
So yeah, when we reprinted it, I recolored the cover over again, and it's really what I had hoped the book would look like, and did not. So, but yeah,
Well,
no, so that was the start. And once I had that, and I had something that I could show people, then small little publishers I had sent were looking for just warm bodies to work for them. So a couple of guys who had bought my comic through the mail contacted me and say, "Hey, you want to do something for me?" So I work for a company called Megaton, and I work for a company called Wonder World Express. They published exactly one issue as far as I know, although I did 3 stories for him. So there's some awful Erik Larsen comics out there somewhere that, that are unpublished as far as I know. So,
well,
you
one day,
know,
much like Token, you'll the works will one day come out, right? Or
yeah.
what's the lady
It'll surface. Somebody will be opening up a drawer going, "What is this wretched thing?" It's like,
like
all right.
let's say what's the name the To Kill a Mockingbird author who's the suddenly To Kill a Watchman whatever Watchtower suddenly
Yeah,
comes out like 30 years later even though she doesn't want it to.
yeah. I mean, I wouldn't care. It would be kind of cool to see it. And plus, it would shut up all those people who say your old stuff is better. Like, no, look how terrible it is. There's by no measure is this better.
Holding up that one graphic fantasy comic book as proof. I do better now.
Look, there's a curve. I'm on the downward slope. It's just
Harper
do
Lee
the
is who
best
I'm
I
thinking of. Harper Lee. So yeah, I mean it's kind of interesting that so you have graphic fantasy. Now
can.
now we go back decades later. Your Savage Dragon series is the longest running colored indie comic book with the same writer and artist in history. Um,
Okay.
that
So,
one actually is true. I read that.
all
It's the
right.
longest running book, except for Cerebus, where the comic book is drawn and written by the same person because Spawn is obviously before didn't do everything in every book
Mhm.
or participate. Um, so yeah, so you're now a record breaker, and you're going to pass Cerebus at 300. I mean, we're 29 issues
I would
away.
assume so. It's going to take for goddamn ever, but it's just how many issues I've been putting out lately. Uh, but I do the best I can. So hopefully,
So, what was it like to be forever tied to this character? I mean, you forever will now be associated with Savage Dragon. I mean, you've done a lot of great stuff. I mean, you're a legend, but Savage Dragon is gonna be the character you're always connected to. So, what does that feel like?
I mean, it's nice because it's all me, all the
Yeah.
other stuff you can kind of go, okay, well, you're riding on the coattails of Jack Kirby or Steve Ditko or whoever coattails I'm riding on. Um, but this is like you're buying it for me and for my work, and there's really no other factors here. So I mean I like that part of it. I like having the complete editorial control to just be able to follow my muse and do whatever the hell I want to, for good or ill. Um, I mean, if I'm going to be tied to something, it might as well be something that I completely created from the ground up.
And
So I'll take it.
and when you're thinking about Savage Dragon, once again, being the character that you're always gonna be associated with, why was this character so important that 32 years later, you're still working on the series?
I don't know. It's just it was just my thing, man. That's all I can say. I mean, it was a character I drew as a kid and a character I kept going with. It was one of those ideas, just as an ongoing series. Um, it had always been something where people had said, wouldn't it be cool if Spider-Man grew up with me? I think what happens is eventually you get to an age where you realize, oh crap, I'm older than Spider-Man is supposed to be,
Hmm.
or I'm older than Superman. Superman was always like eternally 29 years old. And at a certain point you go, oh, what's going on here? I'm 30. What happened to I'm older than Superman. That's not cool. And I think so. I think there's people who go, wouldn't it be nice if everybody started aging now that I'm at that point and they could be aging with me? Nobody thinks, wouldn't it be awesome if Spider-Man were in his 80s? But you kind of like the idea that wouldn't it be cool to have these? So I wanted to see like, well, how would that play out? And I'm in a position where I could do that. So let's give that a shot and see how that works.
But the interesting thing is, assuming let's say you started reading Savage Dragon when you were 10, the readers of Savage Dragon are now old enough to have kids old enough to read Savage Dragon.
Yeah.
So I mean, the character has now eclipsed into generational now, to multiple generations.
Right, yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
what's been the key to the character? You think this longevity? Do you have you been finding that fans of who started with Savage Dragon at the beginning, especially with the miniseries, or now have kids who are now reading Malcolm Dragon as adults?
Mostly they're not. I mean, they're kids read it because the book's kind of skewed a little older than most people's kids. But I think I think people like growing up with a character.
Hmm.
Is part of it, and they like that as they're going through something, the characters they're reading about are also going through that same kind of thing. Malcolm's raising children and he's got a wife and he's got, whatever other issues come up being a person on this world, you know. I, I don't know. You kind of have to ask what the appeal is. For me,
Hmm.
uh it's just being able to do whatever the hell I want to and have it go in whatever direction kind of feels like I want to go in any given day. And I'm all over the place with it. And I think a lot of people like, I don't know what to expect in this book. I think that's an appealing thing is not to go, oh, he's going to be fighting the Green Goblin again. Instead, to be like, I am opening this book and I'm turning the pages and I don't know what to expect on the next page. It could be
So
anything.
so when you're writing Savage Dragon, are you plotting 5, 10, 15, 20 issues ahead? Or are you just going issue to issue what you feel like doing the next day?
I've got sort of an overall arc of where I want things to go. So I know sort of the big picture of I've got all these characters and this one's eventually going to be here and this one's going to be there and this one's going to be there. But that's sort of like, any regular person's long range plans where you're just going, I'm going to school and I hope to be a doctor. So
Hmm.
I know my direction is I want to be a doctor and I'm working towards being a doctor. But today, this happened. And so I don't necessarily have all this happened all nailed down. I've got the big pictures of, the broad picture of this is going to go here, this is going to go there, this is going to go there. And so I have a fair amount of flexibility and then I can just go like, I feel like drawing giant rocks today. So let's have some giant rock creatures show up and go to town.
So, and
You
an
know?
issue 225 of Cyber Dragon, you did one of the ballsiest things done in the industry, where and it's pretty unprecedented. You killed off your main character and kept the character dead. I mean, he hasn't resurfaced like Superman and all these other characters who died then come back, like a year later. You kept him dead.
Yeah.
What motivated the move to kill him off, and how do you think series has changed now that Malcolm is your lead versus the first Dragon?
Um, well, I wanted to kind of fulfill the promise of the book and have it be actually generational. Um, and kind of what was happening was when he was alive, there was way too many people going, okay, but when's he going to be the lead character again? And so I just kind of got to a point where I'm like, look, he's not going to be the lead character again. In fact, he's dead now. So you better move on. And now I'm getting, people going, okay, I still miss this dude because I like that guy a lot, but I guess I need to move on because he's not coming back.
Are you thinking of ever doing like like how they sometimes they'll do like Superman from the 1980s version, and kind of like go back and have stories of Cyber Dragon before his death, just to kind of like as a bone to some of your fans?
I will occasionally do stories within the book that are flashbacks to things that happened before, just to be like, hey, let's establish that this happened so that I can use these other characters and do something with it. Like recent issue 267, I started it off with the Dragon proper, Malcolm and Angel having a mini adventure. And then that introduced some characters that I'm going to be able to play with down the road a bit. Um, so, but I don't want to do is just go, I'm just going to wallow in the past. And the problem with doing those kind of stories in general is, well, I know something can't happen to the dragon to kill him
Hmm.
off because he's already dead.
Hmm.
So you kind of end up with what we used to refer to as the Superboy syndrome, where you knew Superboy was going to grow up to be Superman. So he is invincible. There's just no way that this character can ever come to harm because he's going to grow up to be Superman.
Hmm.
And it kind of loses that. There loses something when the characters aren't in any kind of danger at all. So
So when you're writing Malcolm Dragon, from a writer standpoint, what is your fundamental character difference between Malcolm Dragon and how you view the original Dragon?
I think Malcolm is a little more. He's more thoughtful than his dad was. Somewhat less impulsive, and and not as not. I mean, Dragon was kind of a smarter guy, and again, a smart ass in a way. Um, and I think Malcolm is kind of he's a little more thoughtful than his old man was, and less quippy in terms of, how coming up with that clever line that destroys the bad guys. Um, you just when you work on this stuff, you just go, something about this feels different. And even taking that that other dragon from another dimension, that Paul Dragon character, and hauling him in, uh, he doesn't feel like Dragon either. He's
Mm.
just like something about him doesn't. It just doesn't feel like the same dude. So,
Is
and,
there a
and
character that was more fun to? Is it more fun to write Malcolm, or was it more fun to write the original Dragon?
um, there's different aspects to both of them that I quite enjoy. I do like writing the original Dragon quite a bit. Uh, the problem I kind of had with the original Dragon is I never really came up with the perfect relationship for him,
Mm.
and that Jennifer never quite gelled with the audience. Alex never felt like that's where that ought to go. And neither did Rapture, who kind of bit the bit the big one pretty early on. So with Malcolm, Maxine really just seems like such a nice
Mm.
fit with him that I really like writing their relationship, and th the two of them as a unit, I to me is more fun than Dragon as single guy looking for love in all the wrong places.
Another thing I love about Savage Dragon, and I really respect you for, is that the comic book in many ways is unabashedly liberal. There's a famous covers with Barack Obama, and there's another one Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Um, One question right off the bat: is there going to be a Kamala Harris cover?
I would very much like there to be, but the clock is ticking on that. And uh, I don't know, based on what I've got sitting on the drawing board and how far along things are, that I'll be able to get it out in time
Hmm.
for it to be before the election. And if it ends up coming out after the election, then it's like, okay, well, what's the point of this? I really wanted it, if I'm going to do it, to have it be, hey, endorse me, vote for me kind of thing.
So basically, Biden stepped down a little too late to get her Kamala Harris cover.
It was a little too late,
A
and
little inconvenient.
it is a little, yeah. Well, I couldn't write the story that was already in motion, that was just about ready to come out, um, to be able to have squeeze in an endorsement and just do a cover thing. So I couldn't have been the last issue. And the issue I'm working on now, I, the wife's got me going to doing something that is like, okay, this is going to take up a little time, so we're got a little mini vacation coming up right in the middle of it all. So I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to get it out when I need to get it out. So we'll
Hmm.
see how that goes.
And I think what I love about that is that obviously in some circles of the comic book world, without saying the names of the group, there's some question of should politics be in comic books. I believe that all art is political inherently. Comics have been political since Superman was punching out uh the wealthy tenant owners in the
Oh,
90s,
yeah,
30s.
yeah. I mean, they've always taken some, to a degree. They used to be more political than they became after the code came along. Because I mean, early on, you had Captain America punching Hitler, and
Hmm.
and taking real sides in real wars, and determining who the bad guys were, and being, you know, unapologetically racist. It's like, oh, this is cool. Yes, this is what Japanese people look like. They're a horror show. It's like, holy crap. So,
And yeah, and that's why I've always argued, like, despite I think comics are all art needs to be political because you need to say something in the art that you believe in, or the comic book is just kind of this like faceless, net empty
yeah, yeah,
story.
but I mean, faceless. It's like, oh, evil is bad. It's like, okay, that's bad characters are doing bad stuff. Let's stop the bad guy from being bad. That's all right. but a lot of this stuff ends up being allegory anyway.
Mm.
And you can kind of read into it and go, hey, wait a minute, that guy was Nixon. What? You know?
Well, I mean, speaking of which, there's a character that shows up in issue 271, a villain who is, I'm guessing, is Alex Jones in Allegory. Am I wrong or right?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. But I mean, I don't call people by whatever name. It's like, all right, I gotta step around this a little bit. But it's just, yeah, me being stupid.
But I like the fact that you do have the guts to say this is my belief, this is my politics, and you're putting it out there. And I mean, most of the people who read comic books or like myself who are liberal are going to read books that are liberal, and that's just how it goes. But you never know; you may have someone who you might be able to influence by your art, right? And I think
Yeah,
that's an important thing to make a stand on. And I think when people are like art shouldn't be political, I think are missing the point of art.
yeah, that's true. But I think as a human on this planet who's trying to be uh, fair, that I think it does make some sense to go, no, 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 you do need to show that just because somebody else supports another candidate, that doesn't mean that they're necessarily evil. They may be misguided, but I think I don't think 40% of the people living in the United States are straight up racist and evil. I think they're making some poor decisions,
Hmm.
but and I didn't think it's important to kind of to show that as well, to just go, look, I don't hate you because you support this guy. I wish you wouldn't. I think that's a bad move, but whatever.
So in like I said, issue 270, 271, with the villain in that story, he's obviously very much a right-wing extremist,
Yeah.
for all intents and purposes. Um, and because of what's going on in politics right now, to me it resonates quite a bit for what he's saying.
Mhm.
If you wrote the story 20 years ago, do you think the character would have had the same kind of impact? The villain, I mean.
Um, yeah, I mean things have always been things have been extreme for a while now. Because there were people who were super into George W. Bush and were, when he ended up getting elected president, there were shitty people out there telling uh now I'm blanking on his name. uh telling Gore to get out of whatever the vice president's place is called. I mean, people are just shitty people. So, and they've always been that way. There's always been a certain amount of, these are my guys and these are your guys. I mean, I grew up with Nixon around, and people that was a very polarizing character. There were people who were definitely pro Nixon and people who are definitely like, no, this guy's a crook. He should be in jail. When he was pardoned, it was, that didn't make Gerald Ford a lot of friends.
I think another thing that character that you included in those issues, and I've saw a couple issues before that's really funny, is Mickey Mouse. Which another I don't know. I mean that's kind of ballsy and it's all right because Disney is a massive monster.
Yeah, yeah.
So can you kind of tell me what led to the inclusion of Mickey Mouse?
I just like the idea of it. It's just like, hey, this is characters in the public domain. Um, let's watch some of those old cartoons and see what this dude is all about. And I kind of took some of the things that Mickey Rooney had said. And there's some Mickey Rooney interviews where it was clear that he thought I'm a star. I can kind of do whatever the hell I want to, and I kind of was like, let's take that attitude. And you watch those old cartoons, and Mickey Mouse was just a lech. Like he was pursuing the female mouse that was in those shows with real gusto. and these days you would look at that and go, Jesus, man, what is that? He's really going for it. That's not cool at all. But at the time, that was hilarious to have some character trying to force himself on a woman and for her to be struggling. That was just, isn't this funny? And so I kind of took that and said, all right, what if this guy existed and existed now, and he was just as gung-ho and relentless as he was in some of those early cartoons? What the hell would he be like? Well, he would be a monster. So let's see
But
how that plays out.
see, I read it as an allegory, so apparently I read too deep. See, I was thinking when he with some of the lines of being famous and that you love it because he's famous. I went to a Trump allegory of the grab him by the pussy kind of
Oh yeah, yeah.
conversation. So
Well,
that's what
that
popped in my
too.
brain.
But it's really it's kind of an all-encompassing thing of somebody who's, I mean, if you're a star, they let you do it, but it is very much a position where people feel entitled in a way. It's like, oh, okay, I thought this was cool. I thought we were all cool with me being this guy. Um, but I mean, Mickey Mouse too is a bigger star than uh, Donald Trump ever
Oh
was.
yeah, certainly.
He is just a dude who is on this crappy TV show. I mean, like, come on, you're a star? I don't think so, buddy.
So it's important in the comic book that Maxine's the one who takes down Mickey and not Malcolm. So can I kind of go into like how you wanted to play it out that it's Maxine who eventually takes him down? And you do mention that Maxine originally had an affection for Mickey as well. And so can I kind of go through how that kind of all works out?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what more to add to that than what is already there in the book itself. I thought it was important for her to stand up for herself and for it not to be uh, that she was a damsel in distress being saved by Malcolm. It's also, I didn't want it to be a situation where um, he felt like he could come back because she was defenseless. It's like, oh, if Malcolm's out of the picture, what if Malcolm's gone for the day? Does that mean I can just come in here and be the same kind of brute that I am? So I thought it was important that no, you know, she's got a Jean Carroll-less thing or something. I don't know what.
Is Mickey going to be a recurring villain in the Savage Dragon
Uh,
series?
we haven't seen the last of him. He's not in the next issue though.
Okay. Um,
So,
Another storyline I really enjoyed, or the issue I really enjoyed was we have issue 268, which talks of the super juice. And it also has like a backstory of like bullying of the character gets bullied and everything else. First, is super juice is gonna be something that we're gonna see pop up in later issues that are a storyline that's building.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of this stuff. A lot of times, what I end up doing with these stories is just kind of planting seeds. And I'm just coming in here going, I'm going to put a bunch of little pieces of information here, and sometime that's going to pay off, and I'm going to pull that right back into the book, and then sometimes I'm going to forget about it because I'm a fuck up. But try to keep a running list of stuff that I should get back to. But yeah, that's definitely one of those things where it's like, this is a thing that exists in this world now. So, I can go someplace with that. And so if I have, a bunch of guys attacking Dragon or something and they get the shit kicked out of them, they could be like, well, I got this thing now that I can use, and then I can go and attack you again. And this time I'm going to be amped up.
Is there an old seed that you planted that you have kind of forgot about, but now are thinking that maybe you should? You're waiting to see if you could get it back? Is there like an old seed somewhere now that you realize you just haven't got it back?
I can't think of one that's that old at this point. I mean, the longest was probably Malcolm in a spacesuit in issue 29 that didn't pay off until had grown to be that old.
Yeah.
And that thing was like, Jesus, 130 issues later, I paid off on that one. And that one was definitely like, geez, this has been hanging over my head forever. I really need to get to this. And it's kind of made me, I don't want to do any flash forwards anymore because those are just a pain in the ass. And I'm constantly, they're just hovering over my head going, God, you remember, you've got to get to this. And the bummer about those is, especially when a flash forward thing, you're sitting there going, oh, I want to do this. I crap, that character's still alive. I can't kill my character off, or I can't have him lose an arm, or I can't do any of these other terrible things I was thinking I might do to him because he's sitting there alive and well in this story that I'd set. Crap. I like being able to be impulsive, you know.
Yeah.
I like the idea that I could tomorrow go, you know what? I'm sick of Malcolm Dragon. He's out of the picture too, you know. And then it's like, oh, now what are you going to do? Who's going to be your main character now? And it's like, well, I've got four little dragons that are running around, so I got characters that can step up if I need them to.
Hmm. So I think another interesting, like going back to 260 and the Super Juice and that character, the girl, is that it really feels, it's saying something about bullying, which is obviously an issue as well.
Yeah.
Um, in your opinion, like, are you making a statement about the damage bullying does to an individual, especially psychologically?
Oh, sure, sure. Yeah. I mean, it's there in the story. Some of it's not as blatant as it should be. And also that cover was just kind of to mislead people to think that Maxine was kicking his ass. So.
I think one thing I like about that issue too, though, is at the end, the officer he talks and he said that the bullies did not deserve what they got. So can you kind of go over like the reasoning for that line, and is that suggesting that it was a
I
better way of
mean,
dealing with
well,
everything?
the thing is too, is you go now and there's these guys who are being bullied now who will go and get an AK-47 and come back to
Hmm.
school and kill everybody. And it's like, you know what? You being a bully, that's shitty, but that doesn't mean you should be dead. I
Hmm.
mean, that seems like a rather extreme thing. So this is kind of a variation on the kid coming back to school, uh, with a semi-automatic, but rather than do that, let's have it be somebody who's got superpowers. So
And
now
another
you can slug it out with them.
and another interesting part is that you have they're not backup stories, but they're like intertwined stories with the character of Frank. So how's that going to weave back into the main series as series goes on?
Well, you'll have to wait and see on that one.
Right?
I mean, yeah, yeah, no, a lot of that is just okay, where is this going to go? In some cases, I don't even know how it's going to pay off. Um, but I know it does. So, I'm sitting there writing that stuff now to try and sort out this, dig myself out of this hole that I've dug myself into. Yeah.
So
I
so
don't always have, there's certain things too where it's like some things where I'm like, oh, I've got this long range thing. And then there's always wild card characters that I like to just have be in the book so that I can go off in any direction with them and not be concerned with long range plans. So there's like Angel is kind of one of those where I don't really know where she's going to be 2 years from now. So there's a bunch of different ways I can go with her, and it really does come down to what do I feel like doing this time, and how do you want to do with that, and what can you make of that? And I'm sitting there weighing all of the options and going, all right, well, she could do this, she could do that, she could do that. What's the most interesting, what is the most story possibilities of the various options, and just, do something that hopefully resonates with some people.
So, I mean, obviously, 2025 is coming up shortly. Are we looking at a regular release schedule for 2025?
I mean, 275. 275 is the next big one.
Yeah.
Uh, God, I hope so. I want to get this book back on track. It's not getting any easier. I kind of thought it would, but as it turns out, so the problem is that I don't like to repeat myself a huge amount, and how that screws me up is I've done a lot of stuff over the last 32 years. So then it becomes, okay, well, what's a different way of doing that? And it's like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm running out of ways, so even choreographing any kind of a fight scene, you're just sitting there going, God, what have I not done before? I've done, 300 and something fight scenes. What do I do? What do I do? So
So 275 being the big one that you said. So you're hinting at a major event. So can you kind of give a little hint about what that could entail?
oh, God, it would be such a spoiler. There are several big changes with a couple characters that are going to be like, oh crap, I didn't see that coming. So yeah, I don't want to be. It really would be. It really would be if I was just like, oh, and yeah, I'm doing this. It's
Right,
like,
right,
wow, that story sucks now.
right. So are you still working on comic books of Ant as well, or are you focusing solely on
I
something?
haven't been. I've been working just on Dragon, and I've got some, kind of plot ideas for Ant,
Hmm.
but I really lost time on some of this stuff. I lost my momentum. I had something that was going on there for a while, and I was really hitting the marks, and then for whatever reason, something tripped me up. I think it was that issue where I did the all the comic strips. That one just took me way too long. And it's sort of like, oh, when you take 2 months on an issue, suddenly it's like, all my forward momentum, what happened? So I'm trying to get that back, and we'll see what happens. We'll see. I have my good days where I'm getting all kinds of stuff done, and I have my days where I get jack squad time. And maybe this is my last comic. This may be it. I may not do anymore. Oh, I guess that's the end. So I have those days, and those aren't fun days. And then the days where I'm sit down and pencil 20 pages, like, yes, this book will be daily. And it's like, well, we'll see.
So what's next for you?
Just keep on going, man. I mean, eventually, well, I want to pay off all this stuff. I want to get to a point where, one of Malcolm's kids is the lead character. So,
Yeah.
eventually it'll be a point where Malcolm is,
I mean, is it
not
possible for,
not necessarily dead, but not just deciding I don't want to do this shit anymore.
I mean, are we
And
looking at a this going long enough that maybe you're going to see like Malcolm in a retirement home kind of thing? I mean, how far in advance do you think?
well, the problem is that I would probably be in a retirement home well before Malcolm, because I'm 30 some odd years older than he is. So that gets to be a problem, because like, how much longer can I realistically do it? And Malcolm is what, 27, 28 years old.
Mm.
So it's like, if he's in a retirement home, how many years from now is that? 30 years? Well, am I going to be doing comics at 92 or 91 or whatever? That's That's asking a lot, you know. So we'll see. I would love it. Think that would be awesome to do stories where Malcolm is sitting there going, "You kids, get off of my yard," you know. But even 30 years from now, you know, Malcolm would be 57. It's like that's not that old.
Hmm.
Um,
I mean,
but you know, I mean, there's situations where he could just be going, you know what? Villains are always attacking. Maxine is always in trouble. Uh, you know, Captain America's quit a couple times and Spider-Man's quit a couple times. I could see getting to the point where one of these, you know, where Malcolm is just like, you know what? I've done my part. I think I want to do something else. I'm going to
hmm.
be, you know, I'm just going to be a guy who has his own TV show and I'm going to be, you know, run for political office or whatever stupid thing you might want to do with a character that would effectively end their adventuring.
Hmm.
But I would like to get those kids, you know, and also as you get older, there gets to be a point where you're like, you know, when I'm 27, I can do physically things that I can't do necessarily when I'm 50.
Hmm.
So, you know, at a certain point, I could see him going, I just can't do what I used to be able to do. That's I was really capable at one point, and now I'm not. So how the hell am I going to do this? And also, you know, once his kids have gotten to the point where they're in their 20s or they're, you know, teenagers and in their early 20s, suddenly it's like, oh, these guys can pick up the ball where I that I've dropped. So,
Hmm.
you know, here comes the next generation.
Like I said, I really think it's fascinating what you've done with Savage Dragon, and obviously the 300 301 will be a big deal as well as you break some more records.
Yeah.
And like I said, I want to thank you so much, Mr. Loss, for talking with me. It was an absolute honor. You're fantastic.
Well, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Have a great
Thanks for
night,
having
sir.
me, man.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Bird Stars podcast. Please like and subscribe. Turn for the next episode when Snake boards the mothership to discuss the view of the Phoenix trees, now on Kickstarter. Till next voyage, travel on.